Bez, just talk to us a little bit about the decision to let go of Higuain. Just kind of take us inside the thinking a little bit from your perspective.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he obviously elaborated on everything. I want to say that really enjoyed the short amount of time that I worked with Pipa. He's up there with the best players I've ever coached, and obviously he's done a ton for this club. You know, I mean, what he's done for this club is unmeasurable. You know, obviously tough for him to go down with that injury mid-season. These decisions are obviously never easy. You see these tough decisions happen around the world, and actually see them in every sport where you have a legend and you have a guy that's done a lot for the club, and you want to honor that, but also you have to always be mindful of what's best for the club moving forward. And so nothing's going to change in terms of what he's done for the club and the way people should view him. And like I said, I enjoyed being able to work with him. I wish I had more time to work with him. Obviously, he's a first-class professional and a top player.
When you see an injury happen like that to a player at his age, is it almost kind of written a little bit at the time that that could have been the last time he stepped on the field with this club?
I mean, you never know, right? Every player in professional sports is one bad tackle away from, or one injury away from, you know, them not being able to continue. So in his case, obviously, even tougher because of where he's at in his career. So we knew that was, when he had the injury, it's going to be a difficult one. You know, so we didn't take it lightly. You know, he's a outstanding player and pro, and obviously it's a difficult decision, but at the end of the day, we have to do, again, what's best for the club, and yet nothing can take away from what Pipa's done for this club. It's immeasurable.
You guys talked about, in terms of going forward at that position, the evolution of kind of how you guys want to play offensively. What are you looking for in the next guy who steps into that role?
You know, you need a chance creator, you know, number one. A guy that's going to create goals and assists. That's the number one thing you need in that position. You know, you see with some of the 10s that I've had, what they bring, and that's exactly what we're looking for. A guy that's going to score goals and make goals. You know, set up goals, get assists. This is kind of the straw that stirs the drink. A guy that's going to run the attack and be involved in everything we do in the attack. You need production. You need a guy that's going to help us keep the ball. You need a guy that's going to make final passes. You need a guy that's going to score in the final third and be almost like a second striker. And then defensively also we need a guy that's going to be honest, because that first line of defense is the 9 and the 10 and the wingers. And so it's important that they're mobile, able to cover ground, honest, you know, and can play both sides of the ball.
How much does age play a factor when you're looking at that position in particular?
I don't think age plays a factor ever in any position. I think we always want to get the best player we can get that will fit how we want to play and help us do what we want to do, which is win games and obviously ultimately win trophies. So if that guy's 21 or if he's 31, I mean, at the end of the day, it's if you're a good player and you can bring those things, then you can bring those things. So we do want to get younger for sure on our roster. We've already moved in that direction a little bit with some of the signings we've made. But we don't want to be so young that we're inexperienced either. So you have to have the right mix and balance in how you put a team together. But you know, it is nice to have some energy and guys that can cover ground, but you also want experience and you want guys that are proven. So you know, we have to be mindful with every player in and out, and you've already seen with the signings we made and the players we've moved, that it's very delicate, the balance.
Caleb, you talk about signing a chance creator. What does the club need to do to finish more of the chances that they do get?
Not sure that I understand the question. Yeah.
They generated offense, just not goals.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to do to be more opportunistic in that area moving forward?
I think the last part of the year we scored plenty of goals.
Okay.
You know, I think we fell short in the middle part of the year, and obviously when you look at the middle part of the year, we didn't have Giassi there a lot. People was obviously gone towards the end of that, and obviously moved Pedro in there, and you know, he certainly got the job done in terms of goals and some assists, but he's not a true number 10, but we know he can play there, so that's nice to know, because he can definitely play there and be depth there, but we are looking to sign a 10. And the nice thing about Pedro as well is he's going to be a really nice core piece for us, because he can play right, left, he can play in the 10, and you know, he's going to chip in goals and assists, and he proved that this year. He's not just a guy that's nice to look at, that he gets the job done, and he can chip in and produce, and he's very flexible tactically, and he covers as much ground as anyone in the league. So it was a really good year for him.
Pedro's talked a lot this year just about he's felt more free and able to play more free. People was very kind of similar style. Mm-hmm. The way, now that you talk about Pedro being a core piece, how much going to get that number 10, does that kind of factor in? He has to play well with Pedro when you go out.
Yeah, that's a big factor. I mean, you have to have good chemistry and good balance, and that's an underestimated part of putting a winning team together, is you got to have the right mix of players, and you can't have the same types of guys. You got to have guys that complement each other and bring different dimensions and variety, and yet there has to be a chemistry and a cohesiveness. So you see a little bit with Diaz. He brings the pace, power, and we need a 10 that's going to be a playmaker, a chance creator, a goal scorer, a final passer, a guy that's going to be dynamic as well. Not easy to find those guys, you know, but the teams that win have a guy like that. It's a big part of it. So that'll be certainly a important piece for us, and we feel like Pedro's a really nice secondary playmaker. He can carry our team certainly at times with goals and assists. He can play in the pocket. He can provide width and service as well, you know, from the flanks. And he's shown that he can score in that center channel as well and set up guys. So, and then obviously Giassi as a striker is a guy that's proven that he can score goals with the right service. And I think if he played a few more games this year, he'd be right on track to where he was last year. You know, people forget that he missed more games this year. I think 6 more games than he did last year-ish.
And 3 guys who are not returning, Alex, Sosa, and Eddie, are all like kind of younger guys who have been here for 2 or 3 years. Was it the case that they didn't develop as expected, or just the club trying to go a different direction with?
Well, I don't know if they're all younger guys. Alex isn't young. You know, he's a young pro, but he's, you know, 26, I think. You know, 25. Yeah, so that's not really young as a pro. You know, sometimes it's funny, guys out of college are viewed as young, but they're really not young. They're just in college 4 years. And no, it certainly had nothing to do with being young or age. Again, it had to do with just what's best for the club. You know, and obviously you can either do it or we don't think you can. It's that simple. Or maybe we don't think in the depth chart that you're going to be in the mix to play as much moving forward. And obviously this year we had the benefit of really learning a lot. Who can do it and who we need to just move on from. Doesn't mean they can't do it somewhere else. All of those guys are good players and good guys, but you know, we have to make tough decisions and obviously free up cap space and free up roster spots. And we have a lot of evidence to go on with guys, because everybody played this year and played a lot of minutes. So when you really just look at the analytics and you look at the data and you look at the games won and you look at the performances, measurable and just feel, probably there's no team in the league that had more evidence to go on with all of our guys on our team. And so that's probably the one main positive from this year is we're going to be a lot better next year because we have a lot of evidence to go on to make hopefully educated decisions with our players in and out.
the roster spots you have to fill now, do you anticipate that's mostly coming from signings, maybe transfers and trades, or kind of a combination of all three?
Yeah, we'll use all mechanisms, obviously, but you do have to be mindful again of the locker room and making sure that the chemistry is what you need it to be. I really try to forecast how that's going to shape up in terms of the personalities of the group, who's going to lead. We spend hours upon hours thinking about all those decisions. It's very delicate, and the coaches and GMs and presidents that make the right decisions on the team building piece, not just the talent and the dimensions and the production and effectiveness, but also the overall chemistry is massive. You got to have a feel for that. So just like I said, it's important to have a balance of young players and mature, experienced players. It's important to have a balance of domestic players, and I think a little bit of foreign flair for me. If you look at my teams in Portland, we had a lot of, spice on the team, I would call it, in terms of the flair, and guys from different countries that bring a little, I think, spice to the game and unique qualities, and I like that in a team. And yet, on my teams, we always had guys that were MLS proven guys. I was just thinking about this in looking at Minnesota. I mean, what's really the difference of Minnesota this year? And I think I go Parra and Ozzie Alonso. When you look at those two signings, in my opinion, people might disagree, but those two guys, for me, MLS proven winners. In the spine of the team, at the backbone of the team. For me, you have to get those type of guys mixed into your group as well. When I go back to key signings for us, a Nat Borchers type. He was MLS proven. He was a winner. He was a champion, and those are the type of guys you need in your locker room as well. Mixed in with some really talented, proven foreign or domestic players. That doesn't matter where they come from, but I do think having just a blend is really important.
As mentioned, things are progressing with Harrison, but how important is he to have back for next year from a playing perspective?
Yeah, good question. He's very important. Obviously when you saw he was healthy, our performance went up, and you should go back and look at all the lineups again. I do it every day just to remind myself, because it's important to understand the perspective in the reality of the season, and who was in when we won and who was in when we lost, and who was in when we played well and who was in when we didn't. It's really important to have that evidence, and these days now we have so much measurable things to look at as well in terms of analytics to make what we feel is good, what we feel are educated, measurable decisions. But also there's a feel in it, and you can't lose sight of that. And Harry, when he was in, we started the year, he was in, and at the end of the year he was in, so I don't think there's any coincidence that we were winning in those two phases of the year.
Chris Caden, when do you expect him to come, and when what does he kind of project at that position?
Preseason, we see him. He's a young player again, so you'll see a nice blend of youth and experience. And we're projecting for next year. We want to win every year, so next year, but also we're thinking ahead, the following year and the following year as well. And so we always want to have in the 1, 2, 3 in every spot, at least one young guy, I believe, and Tim and Pat agree, we all are on the same page with this. You got to have a young guy in one of those 1, 2, 3 spots, and you want those guys to come along. So going back to your point on youth, I believe in youth. I played a young academy kid. I think it was started to make games this year. Alvis Powell was 18 years old when I debuted him. Played the academy kid Marco Farfan at Portland as well, and Jeremy Abobasi was a guy that I gave him his debut. So I believe in young players, but I don't believe in playing young players just to play them. I believe in playing them because they're good enough, and playing them because they're going to eventually be a guy that gets the job done. There are a lot of clubs that it's a little bit smoke and mirrors. They play young guys just to play them, and then they get rid of them 3 games later or whatever. And it's, for me, I believe in signing guys that are good enough and playing young guys that have earned it. because at the end of the day, my job's to win games, and whether it's a 32-year-old or a 19-year-old, at the end of the day, if I'm not winning games with 19-year-olds, no one's going to give me a free pass. So, but I think having young guys coming up in the club in the pipeline is important, mostly for succession planning, and also because having a young player to mold and a young guy that's able to cover ground. This is a game where you got to run. You got to be able to run in this game. And there's no luxury guys anymore. It used to be when I played, you could have a luxury 10 and you let them walk around, and even on some of the good teams this year that have luxury guys, they're limited in what they can do both sides of the ball, and everybody knows who those guys are, and they know that there's a strength and a weakness with some of those guys. I prefer to have a team that's all mobile, and so my point is having some young guys in there that are mobile and hungry and have something to prove, have things to win, have a little chip on their shoulder. I think that's important. You have too many of those guys, though, and now you don't have enough calm and presence and experience. So you have to have a blend, and I've always had that with my teams.
By the time the preseason, do you expect maybe to have another homegrown in there, generate some youth?
Maybe, yeah. We got some good ones in the pipeline. It's just figuring out the right time, and I think the other thing is we don't want to sign a guy that's going to be blocked. So it's important when we sign a guy that he's got a clear pathway, and whether he's in the 1, 2, or 3, we want to sign a guy that's going to be in a position in at least a 3. Because again, if we sign a young guy, that it all looks all great to everybody, but then if he never plays, then everybody goes, well, why isn't he playing? So it does no good. We'd rather have a guy stay in college another year, or stay whatever, an academy, or get him on loan somewhere. So I think it's really important, and as we build our club and we get a reserve team, that'll help for sure. It's been great for Booba to get 8 games. That was huge for his development. It also doesn't mean that Booba's automatically now going to get 15 games. He now moves into the year 2 where now he still has to earn his minutes, but what we saw in his 8 games was the kid can do it. He still has some things to learn, but he proved that he could get the job done, and so that's really, really exciting. And I think he showed that he's got a lot of upside. So if there's another guy in a position of need, and he's proven to be good enough, we will certainly look to do that, but not just do it to do it for kind of the eye candy.
And these training sessions, obviously with no upcoming matches, what's the kind of value you're trying to get from them, and what are the things you're looking for?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, the off-season is longer this year, so in just kind of bridging the gap between the end of the season and the preseason, we felt it was important to do 4 weeks of training. We could have trained longer, but we felt that was the right amount. I was very clear with the guys that it's not a punishment, but it's actually a privilege. Right? If you're still on the team, and we have a group of guys, today we had 12, and you're in that core, it's a privilege to be here, and we've made it enjoyable. It's not a punishment, and we're using it every day. We're using every day as a building block, and if we handle it the right way and we have clear objectives, even though there's no games, then we can come together and make progress, whether it's chemistry, whether it's in a little concept. We're doing some team building things as well. So it's been actually it's been very enjoyable. And I know at first probably the guys were not looking forward to it and skeptical about it, but I think they're funny enough enjoying it. And listen, what are we going to do? Sit around all day at home and do nothing for 3 months? It's nice to play the game, and we've made it fun, and I think we're funny enough. Our core is really coming together even more than ever, and it'll help us next year.
And did it start last week? Or?
This is our last week. This is our second week. Yeah, so we'll do 4 weeks. We're doing 4 days on, 3 days off, and we're doing 4 weeks, and then we're going to end with a game at the end of it.